It felt like the air in this courtroom was heavier than its walls could hold. Every seat was filled, from producers to reporters to even former friends of the family. It wasn't just another testimony day. It was Judgment Day against the Browns. Meri sat still, her shoulders drawn inward, as if she was trying to shrink from the noise. Cameras zoomed in on her trembling fingers, which brushed the chain of her necklace, a nervous habit bred by years of smiling through pain. Robyn wouldn't make eye contact, staring into the polished wood of the table as if it could give her answers she didn't want to hear. And Kody, well, Kody sat tall, too tall, his chin high, his expression caught somewhere between confidence and panic. The judge's gavel came down once, sharp and final. Court is now in session. We're here to continue proceedings in Brown versus Brown. Brown regarding the disputed paternity and allegations of financial deception. The crowd stirred. A few whispers broke through the tension, then were silenced by the bailiff. The prosecution went first. A woman, Carla Freeman, known for her icy precision, rose with a stack of papers in her hand. Your Honor, today we will present evidence suggesting that Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown knowingly withheld information about financial transactions and, more importantly, the existence of a DNA test connected to a minor within their household. Kody clenched his jaw. His lawyer inclined toward him, speaking in a whisper, too soft to catch. But Meri didn't bat an eye. She'd heard it all before. Excuses, explanations, the soft manipulations wrapped in charm. Her attorney stood up next, a middle-aged man, calm and soothing, a voice of warmth with undertones of steel. Your Honor, my client seeks only the truth. She doesn't want money. She doesn't want fame. She wants closure. And she deserves it. The judge nodded. Then let's get to it. The room dimmed a little, and a screen flickered to life, showing old footage, family clips from a long time ago. The Brown family smiled, cooked and laughed together. Their children were playing in the yard. And yet, beneath it all, everybody could feel the tragedy of hindsight. That's the thing about the Browns. On TV, they were love and faith and togetherness. But off-camera, there were whispers and secrecy, and one truth that refused to stay buried. Douglas turned to Meri. Mrs. Brown, do you remember what happened on June 12th, 3 years ago? Her lips parted and her eyes went glassy. Yes, that was the night I found the letter. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The letter, Douglas repeated softly, came anonymously? Yes. It came without a return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. A DNA result showing a child's name I didn't recognize. It said Kody Brown was the father. Robyn suddenly looked up, her voice shaking. That's not true. That letter was a lie. A trap. The judge raised a hand. Mrs. Brown, you'll have your turn. Kody leaned in toward Robyn, whispering harshly. Cameras caught the motion, not the words. Douglas continued. Mrs. Brown, after you got this letter, what did you do? Meri took a deep breath. I confronted Kody. He denied it. Said it was some fan trying to ruin us. But his reaction. She paused, eyes flicking toward Kody. His reaction told me everything I needed to know. The judge looked interested. Explain. He wasn't angry that it existed. He was angry that I'd seen it. The line was like a blow. Douglas handed over a copy of the letter as evidence. Your Honor, we'll come back to this later. For now, we'd like to call our first witness, Miss Christine Brown. Christine came forward, simply attired, no makeup, but steady in a way that made heads turn. She had been the one who was always able to smile through heartbreak. until she couldn't anymore. Douglas asked softly, "Christine, you lived in the same home as Kody and Robyn during the early years of their marriage, correct?" "Yes." "Did you ever witness anything that would suggest a secret being kept from Meri?" Christine was taken aback. "I did. There were phone calls late at night. I remember once Robyn crying in the kitchen, saying, if she ever finds out, everything ends. When I asked what she meant, Kody walked in and said it was about a child from Robyn's past." "And did that child later appear in the family structure?" Christine swallowed. "Yes. And I never asked again, because I was scared of what I'd hear." The courtroom fell completely silent. Immediately, Robyn's attorney was on his feet, protesting. "Your Honor, that is speculation, not evidence." "Sustained," the judge replied, but noted. The tone shifted again, faster now, tense. Kody's lawyer took control, trying to paint Meri as a scorned woman with old wounds. But it didn't fool the audience. The cameras caught Kody's twitching hands, Robyn's darting eyes, and Meri's quiet strength. Finally, the judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Brown," he said to Meri, "you have accused your husband of deception. Yet you have remained silent for years. Why now?" Her response came after a long, shaking breath. "Because I thought silence would save my family. But silence only saved the lie." The judge's pen stopped midair. Everyone in the courtroom could feel it. Something inside of that truth had shifted. This wasn't about DNA anymore. It was about years of manipulation, secrets swapped for peace, and a woman taking back her voice. Finally, the judge turned to the bailiff. "Bring the envelope forward." The sound of footsteps echoed. The bailiff handed the sealed white envelope to the judge, who held it up for all to see. "These are the DNA results submitted under court order. Neither party has seen them yet." Kody's confident mask cracked just slightly. Robyn wiped her eyes with a tissue, her lips trembling. Meri sat frozen. The judge gently laid the envelope on the desk and looked up. "We will review the contents tomorrow morning. This court is adjourned until 10 a.m. The gavel struck, but nobody budged, because everyone knew that when the court resumed, the truth waiting inside that envelope could destroy everything. Kody stood, his face pale. Cameras flashed. Robyn reached for his hand, but he didn't take it. Christine walked quietly past them both. And Meri remained in her seat, her eyes riveted on the envelope, as though it was the last piece of her life she hadn't already lost. After the courtroom had cleared, Douglas leaned down to her. "You did good today," he said. Meri whispered to herself, "Tomorrow isn't about doing good. It is about surviving the truth." Morning came. The camera flashes have returned, blinding and relentless. Inside, the bench was gleaming under harsh light, while every inch of air was filled with tension. Kody was seated, his lawyer whispering last-minute instructions into his ear. Robyn sat beside him, clutching a handkerchief embroidered with her initials. Christine and Janelle were called back into the room, both looking exhausted but resolute. The judge entered. "Court is back in session. We will continue with testimony." The bailiff carried the envelope back, unopened, and set it before the judge. Everyone's eyes followed it. Douglas stood up first. Meri's lawyer. "Your Honor, before we open the DNA results, we request to bring into the courtroom a key witness who may shed light on the motive behind the deception." Kody's attorney frowned. "Objection. We agreed the results come first." Douglas calmly shook his head. "Your Honor, motive does make a difference, because what is in that envelope may not be about blood at all. It could be about money, power, and control." The judge nodded slowly. "Proceed." The doors opened, and a man came in, tall, composed, with an envelope of his own. Cameras zoomed in on him as the whispers began to circulate within the courtroom. It was David Jessup, Robyn's ex-husband. David took the stand, his face impassive. "Mr. Jessup," Douglas started, "you were married to Mrs. Robyn Brown before she married Mr. Kody Brown, correct?" "Yes." "And over that period, did you share any financial assets or business ventures?" David nodded. "We did. A trust account, one that was never legally dissolved." The courtroom gasped. Even the judge's eyes had widened. Douglas pressed on. "Are you saying Mrs. Brown had undisclosed funds at the time she married into the Brown family?" "Yes," said David. "And I believe those funds were later merged into a joint account with Kody under the family's name, but not declared in their filings for the show or their taxes." Kody's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. Irrelevant to this case." But the judge raised a hand. "Overruled. Continue." Meri kept her face blank, but her hands fisted on the edge of the table. Years of suspicion suddenly echoing back at her. Douglas leaned forward, his voice even, but with a cutting edge. "Mr. Jessup, did you ever receive contact from Mrs. Brown after her marriage to Kody?" David hesitated. "Yes, once." "When was that?" "The same week the anonymous DNA letter was sent." The room erupted with gasps. Robyn buried her face in her hands. Robyn's attorney quickly stood up. "Your Honor, this witness is motivated by bitterness. He has no credibility." But before the judge could say anything, David spoke. "Bitterness? Maybe. But I kept records. Dates, emails, transfers. If you check the Brown family trust, you'll find it was altered 2 weeks after Robyn received her first legal payment from the show's network. And Meri's name was quietly removed. You could have heard a pin drop. Meri looked down, a catch in her throat. That old pain, the one that was never quite healed, came back like a ghost. The judge rubbed his temple. "Mrs. Brown," he said to Robyn, "do you deny these claims?" Robyn's voice cracked. I did what Kody told me. He said it was for the family's protection." All eyes were turned to Kody. He leaned forward slowly, his voice low but dangerous. "I told you that because you couldn't handle the pressure. You begged me to take care of it. Don't twist it now." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Robyn's tears fell silently. Christine shook her head, uttering something under her breath, something that sounded like "he's doing it again." Douglas stood again. "Your Honor, I'd like to introduce one more piece of evidence before we open the DNA results. Exhibit B." He held up a tablet showing an email from the same week the letter arrived. It was from Robyn's private account, and it read, "If she finds out, we'll lose everything. Burn it." Robyn looked horrified. "That's not what it seems." The judge raised his hand. "Enough. This court will recess for 10 minutes. The gavel fell, but nobody budged. Meri sat quietly, the chaos swirling around her. Christine leaned over from her seat behind the rail and whispered, "You okay?" Meri nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. 10 minutes later, the court resumed. The judge looked tired, his patience thinning. Before we proceed further, I will allow both sides one final statement before I unseal the DNA report. Kody stood. His voice rang with practiced conviction. "Your Honor, this whole case is a circus. My family has been harassed, our privacy violated. These women," he gestured toward Meri and Christine, "are angry because I moved on. That's all this is." Meri didn't look up. Then Douglas rose for the defense. His voice was low, almost soft. "Maybe it is anger. Maybe it's heartbreak. But, Your Honor, when a person hides the truth from the ones they love, they don't just break trust. They rewrite reality. And we're here today to find out whose reality is real." The judge nodded once, almost gravely. Then he reached for the white envelope. Every heartbeat seemed to slow. Every whisper died. Kody's hand twitched. Robyn's breathing hitched. Meri stared straight ahead, unblinking. The judge tore the seal open. Paper crinkled. The world seemed to shrink to that sound. He unfolded the first page, scanned the lines, and looked up. According to this report, he said, his voice steady but grave, the child in question shares a 99.7% DNA match with. And before he could finish, Robyn screamed, "Stop, please, don't read it." Gasps erupted. The judge froze. Cameras flashed. Kody stood up so fast, his chair fell backward. Meri whispered, "Why, Robyn? What are you hiding?" Robyn buried her face in her hands and sobbed openly. "Because it's not what you think, it's worse." The judge sighed. "This court will reconvene tomorrow to verify these findings. Until then, all parties are ordered not to discuss this case publicly." He rose and left the bench. The gavel struck once, final and echoing. The courtroom emptied again, with reporters shouting questions and cameras flashing. But Meri didn't move. She sat in her chair, frozen in that moment, as she tried to make sense of Robyn's tears and Kody's fear. Douglas leaned over and whispered, "Whatever she's hiding, we'll find it. The paper's only half the story." Meri finally looked up, her voice cold but steady. "Then tomorrow, let's finish the other half." The third morning of the trial dawned cold and gray. The sky above Flagstaff seemed to sense something was coming which would not be reversible. Reporters lined the courthouse steps, murmuring about yesterday's chaos. Words like scandal, betrayal, and DNA shocker flashed across every phone screen. Inside, the courtroom lights buzzed softly. Cameras focused and refocused. The envelope, the same one that had kept everyone guessing for days, sat back on the judge's desk, opened but unread aloud. It felt alive, like it carried a pulse of its own. Meri entered quietly, her face calm but pale. She wasn't wearing any makeup today, just that deep blue dress and the same silver chain she'd worn since day one. Her lawyer, Douglas, nodded slowly, a silent message to be ready. Kody entered next, shoulders squared, his face a picture of defiance and fear. Robyn followed behind him, tears having swollen her eyes, clutching a Bible to her chest. Christine and Janelle sat down in the audience, looking hollowed out by exhaustion and disbelief. It wasn't until the judge finally entered that anyone dared to move. "We are here to finalize the reading of the DNA results and address new evidence submitted to the court overnight," he said. A single cough echoed. The world seemed to hold its breath. The judge lifted the paper again. His eyes scanned it once more, making sure. Then he spoke. "The DNA test confirms that the child in question shares a 99.7% genetic match, not with Mr. Kody Brown." A pause. Everyone's heads snapped up. "But with Mr. David Jessup." Gasps, cries, shouts. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Cameras flashed like lightning. Robyn immediately broke down, burying her face in her hands. Kody's jaw dropped, the color draining from his face. Christine's mouth fell open, and Janelle covered hers in shock. The judge struck his gavel. "Order." Order in the court. When silence finally fell, the judge continued. However, the document was filed under Mrs. Brown's name, meaning Mrs. Robyn Brown knowingly declared Mr. Kody Brown as the father of this child on legal records. Meri's breath caught. Robyn's shoulders shook as she sobbed. Kody's voice cracked with anger. "You lied to me? Robyn, you." She cut him off, standing to her feet, her voice trembling but fierce. You wanted me to lie. You told me to, Kody. You said the show, the fans, the image, it couldn't survive another scandal. The judge slammed his gavel again. Sit down, both of you. Douglas stepped forward, voice calm but cutting. So let's be clear, Your Honor. The child wasn't Mr. Brown's. The deception was done to hold on to a public image and financial control of the family's brand. And Meri, the woman who was cast aside, was used to keep that secret buried. Kody's lawyer objected, shouting, "This is speculation." Overruled, the judge snapped. Robyn shook her head, tears falling fast. It wasn't about money. It was about family. I was scared. I thought that if people knew David was the father, it would destroy everything. I didn't want to lose Kody. Meri finally spoke, her voice soft but sharp as glass. You didn't want to lose control. The courtroom was silent once more. Kody turned toward her, his eyes blazing. You've been trying to tear this family apart for years, Meri. You and your bitterness. Meri interrupted quietly. No, Kody. I've been trying to survive it. Even the judge paused at that. Douglas laid a reassuring hand on her shoulder as he turned to the bench. Your Honor, we have further evidence showing Mrs. Brown's financial trust was transferred into an account managed solely by Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown shortly after this false declaration. This isn't just moral deception, it's legal fraud. The judge leaned back and rubbed his chin. This court will review those documents immediately. The silence stretched long enough for everyone to hear the faint hum of the lights overhead. Then, without warning, Robyn stood again, her voice trembling but rising with desperation. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The letter, the DNA, the trust. I thought it would all stay quiet, but when Meri found out, Kody said, he said to make it disappear. Kody slammed his hand on the table. That's a lie. The bailiff moved closer. Robyn continued, you told me to send her the fake letter, to confuse her, to make her think it was someone else's doing. But then David really did the test, and Kody's attorney interrupted to yell, Your Honor, this is turning into hysteria. The judge's voice rose, firm and commanding. Enough. If what Mrs. Brown is saying is true, then this case just shifted from civil to criminal grounds. Gasps filled the room again. Kody's mask finally cracked. He slumped slightly, his eyes darting between the judge, Robyn, and Meri. His lawyer was feverishly whispering to him, but Kody didn't seem to hear anything. Meri watched him, not with hate, but with the kind of sadness that comes from finally understanding the truth. Whispering softly, she said, You built a family on love, Kody, but you ruled it with fear. He met her gaze, his eyes narrowing. You think you're innocent? You left long before I ever lied. Meri smiled faintly. Maybe, but I didn't lie to keep you. Those words hit him harder than any verdict could. The judge cleared his throat. We'll recess for an hour while we review this new evidence. This court is not adjourned. One strike of the gavel resounded through the chamber like a gunshot. The people began to murmur. Reporters ran out to file updates. Christine looked pale, her grip on Janelle's hand tight. Robyn slumped into her seat, sobbing uncontrollably. Kody stood still, eyes glassy, lips tight, a man watching his empire crumble, piece by piece. Meri rose slowly, smoothing her dress. Douglas whispered, We're winning. But she shook her head. No, nobody wins here. Not with this kind of truth. She turned toward the door, walking past Kody, who didn't even look at her. As she passed Robyn, she paused for just a second. Robyn, she said softly, You could have told me. You didn't have to destroy me to save him. Robyn looked up, eyes swollen. I thought you'd hate me. I don't, Meri whispered. I just can't recognize you anymore. Then she walked out, past the flashing cameras, past the shouting reporters, into the cold air that smelled like rain and endings. And for the first time in years, Meri didn't feel broken. She felt empty, but free. Inside, the judge had weighed his decision in silence. When he came back, he wore a somber expression. The court will reconvene tomorrow for final testimonies. This hearing is now suspended. He stood, nodded once, and left the bench. The bailiff called, "All rise," but no one did. Because everyone knew that when the court reopened tomorrow, it wouldn't just deliver a verdict. It would end the sister-wives story, as the world knew it. The next morning was like a whisper before the storm. Cameras glimmered in the gray dawn outside the courthouse. News anchors called it the most emotional day yet. Inside, you could feel it, the weight of something sacred and broken. Meri Brown strode through the metal detectors with a quiet calmness. No entourage, no statement, and no mask. Only calm eyes and a worn folder in her hands were evident. She didn't have to say a word. The world already knew it. Today, Meri would take the stand. She entered the courtroom, and a hush fell over the audience. Christine and Janelle again sat together, but united only by their grief now, not loyalty. Robyn sat alone now, her eyes vacant, her hands shaking. Kody looked worn, older somehow. The confident patriarch was gone, replaced by a man waiting for judgment. When the judge called the session to order, his gavel felt like thunder in a church. Meri Brown, take the stand. She stood up, walked to the witness box, swore the oath with a steady hand, and then, with the world watching, she started to talk. She spoke softly. "I didn't come here for revenge." Her voice filled the room like a quiet song. "I came here because silence became another kind of prison." She paused, looking briefly toward Kody. "I spent decades being told family meant sacrifice, that love meant staying quiet. That obedience was holiness. But I learned the hard way. Love without truth is just fear wearing perfume." The courtroom was still. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Her attorney, Douglas, moved closer. "Mrs. Brown, can you describe to the court what you uncovered and why you decided to come forward now?" Meri nodded. "For years, I suspected money was being moved, but I ignored it. I thought I was being paranoid. Then, one night, I found a letter that wasn't meant for me." She held up a folded paper, the one that started it all. It was from a lawyer's office. It said my trust was merged with another name, Robyn's. When I confronted Kody, he told me it was for family unity. But later I learned that unity meant losing everything I had worked for. She swallowed hard. That letter broke something in me. And when I tried to leave quietly, they sent me messages, fake ones, pretending to be from lawyers, pretending to offer settlements. It was a game of confusion and guilt. Douglas asked gently, "And when you learned about the DNA test?" Her eyes welled up with tears. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought someone wanted to hurt me. Then I saw the results myself, and I understood. All those years, I was blamed for the cracks in this family, while the real betrayal was hidden right in front of us. Kody's attorney leapt up. Objection. Speculative. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. She's testifying to her experience. Meri took a shaky breath. "I'm not here to destroy Kody. I loved him once. But when love becomes a weapon, silence becomes survival." Her words cut like cold wind. Robyn began to sob quietly in the corner. Douglas nodded. "Mrs. Brown, can you tell us about what emotional impact this deception had on you?" Meri, after a moment's hesitation, spoke in hushed tones. "You spend years thinking, if you just try harder, you'll be enough. You smile through rejection. You pray through humiliation. But one day, you look in the mirror and realize you've vanished. That's what deceit does. It doesn't kill you fast. It erases you one truth at a time. The courtroom was frozen in silence. Even Kody couldn't look at her. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Brown, you said earlier that financial control was used as a weapon. Do you have evidence to support that? Meri opened her folder. Inside were statements, transactions, signatures. I brought everything, she said, because lies hide in numbers too. Kody's lawyer rose, clearly rattled. Mrs. Brown, isn't it true you benefited from this family's earnings? That you lived comfortably under the same name you now accuse? Meri didn't flinch. Yes, I lived comfortably, but comfort built on silence isn't peace. It's captivity with better lighting. A murmur ran through the room. The judge called for order. The lawyer pressed again. Isn't this about jealousy, Mrs. Brown? About losing your position? A small, sad smile crossed her face. Jealousy fades. Betrayal doesn't. He said nothing. Douglas nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. One last question. What do you want from this court? Meri glanced down for a moment, then raised her eyes. Direct? Sure. I don't want money. I don't want fame. I just want my name back. I want the truth to have its day, even if it burns everything else down. The judge removed his glasses, wiping his eyes briefly before composing himself. Thank you, Mrs. Brown, he said quietly. You may step down. Kody spoke finally as she walked back to her seat, her voice rough, low, almost pleading. Meri, you could have told me you still cared. She paused just a second, turned slightly, and said, I did, every day. You just never listened, unless it sounded like obedience. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Robyn couldn't meet her eyes. The judge announced, the court will recess for 15 minutes. After that, we will hear from Mr. Brown. The gavel struck. Meri exhaled deeply, clutching her folder. Douglas whispered, You did it. You finally said it all. But Meri just stared ahead, her voice distant. I didn't say it for me. I said it for every woman who was told her pain was disloyalty. When Kody took the stand later, his face was pale, eyes tired. The room had shifted, the air heavier now, truth floating like dust in sunlight. He looked over at Meri one more time before speaking, and for the first time, his confidence faltered. But that's for the next session, because session 4 wasn't about evidence. It was about emotion. The courtroom didn't only hear a case, but felt a reckoning. The courtroom filled once more upon recess, but this time the silence was heavier, like the air before a thunderstorm. Every seat was taken. Cameras clicked softly. The even guards stood a little straighter, sensing this would be the day everything changed. Kody Brown took the stand. Gone was the dazzling smile, the confidence of a showman. He was pale, with drawn features. His hands, once animated, now were clasped on the table. The judge regarded him with measured patience. Mr. Brown, you've heard the testimony, you've seen the evidence. This is your chance to respond. Kody swallowed hard. Your Honor, I built this family from faith and love. I never meant for it to come to this. His voice cracked slightly, but somewhere along the way, I started believing my own image. I thought control was leadership. I thought silence was peace. I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Meri sat still, her expression unreadable. Christine averted her eyes. Robyn clutched a handkerchief tightly. Kody continued. I didn't forge the documents myself, but I didn't stop them either. I told myself it was just accounting, just keeping things simple, but I knew what it meant for Meri. He glanced toward her fleetingly. I knew it would take her name off the property. I told myself she didn't care anymore, that she'd moved on. I used that lie to sleep at night. His attorney shifted uncomfortably, but Kody continued. The DNA test. That wasn't supposed to happen either, Robyn. He stopped mid-sentence. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Brown, you may continue. Kody hesitated. Robyn found out first. She's the one who pushed for the test. She said she had to know, because the child wasn't mine. The courtroom gasped. Robyn covered her face, sobbing. Cameras flashed wildly. The judge slammed the gavel. Order. There will be order in this court. Kody sat down heavily, his voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't angry, he whispered. I was relieved, because I'd been pretending for years. Pretending we were still that perfect, plural family. But deep down, I knew we were strangers under one roof. Douglas, Meri's lawyer, slowly rose. Your Honor, in light of this new revelation, we request the DNA report be re-entered as full evidence. The judge nodded grimly. Approved. The clerk had come forward again, unsealing the envelope. The courtroom became absolutely silent. You could hear the paper ripping. The clerk had handed the document to the judge. He read silently, then lifted his gaze. In the matter of paternity, he began with great care. The results confirm Mr. Brown is not the biological father. Robyn started to cry harder. Kody closed his eyes. The judge further explained. Moreover, from the evidence presented, meaning the combined trust documents, forged signatures, and control over finances, this court is satisfied that there was sufficient evidence to establish civil fraud. He paused. The property holdings are to be divided equally amongst all parties, with restitution awarded to Mrs. Meri Brown. The courtroom erupted. Some gasps, some whispers, some tears. Meri sat frozen, her hands trembling. Douglas leaned in close. You won. But she didn't smile. This isn't winning, she whispered. It's surviving. Robyn stood up suddenly, shouting through tears. You don't understand. I didn't do this to hurt her. I just wanted to protect what was left of us. The judge warned. Mrs. Brown, please. But she kept going. Kody told me if I didn't sign, we'd lose everything. He said Meri was leaving, that she didn't want her part anyway. Kody's head snapped toward her. Robyn, stop. She turned on him, voice trembling, but fierce. You lied to me too. You said the trust was just a formality. You said it would bring peace to the family. Tears streamed down her face. All it did was destroy us. The courtroom buzzed once more. The judge struck the gavel, restoring silence. Enough, he said sternly. This court will not serve as a battlefield for your heartbreak. He turned to Meri. Mrs. Brown, you may address the court one final time. Meri stood, gathering what strength she had left. Her voice was soft but steady. I don't want them punished, she said. Not anymore. I want them to learn what love without control feels like. I want them to stop calling it faith when it's fear. She turned to Robyn, not in anger it seemed, but almost with sadness. And I want her to know I forgive her. Because I remember what it's like to be afraid of losing someone who already left. A hush fell upon the courtroom. Even the judge looked moved. The judge took a deep breath. This court commends you, Mrs. Brown. This case is closed. Judgment stands. The gavel fell for the last time. Outside, the world waited, reporters crowding the steps. The Brown family name was once a symbol of unity. Now it was a headline of heartbreak. Meri walked out first. No victory speech, no anger. Just peace. Quiet. Earned peace. Christine and Janelle joined her, each in silence, the way survivors do when words aren't enough. Behind them, Robyn and Kody emerged, not hand in hand, but apart. Two people who had once shared everything, now bound together only by the weight of what they'd lost. At the bottom of the courthouse steps, Meri paused as cameras flashed. The wind caught her hair. She looked up at the sky and whispered, maybe to herself, maybe to the world, it's over. And maybe finally, it's beginning. Fade out. Soft instrumental music plays. The camera slowly moves across the courthouse, the Brown family going their separate ways. Voiceover. Final CTA. If you've watched till the end, I want to hear from you. Do you think justice was truly served, or did everybody lose something that can never be replaced? Let me know in the comments below, because sometimes the real story begins after the verdict.